ultra-skilled 1% of drivers, you probably haven't done much with your trusty automobile. Those special few drivers out there, however, can do literally unimaginable things on four wheels. Things you'll probably never live to see with your own eyes. But don't worry, that's why I'm here. This video is all about these incredible drivers. Ready to take a look? Let's get it on. There are people in this world that go out of their way to make things difficult for themselves just to prove that those things can be done. And I'm so glad these people exist because it means we get to watch stuff like this. There's a reason you can't drive a truck with a car license, and that reason is they're incredibly difficult to maneuver. You can't just park them like a normal car. You can't drive them too fast or they tip over. There are all sorts of difficulties, but you'd never know it watching these guys driving their trucks. The skill and precision they bring to their truck driving is unreal. Most of us would struggle to perform a perfect slalom or park that fast and efficiently in a small car.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
It would be absolutely impossible for us to do what these amazing drivers can do. It's easy to think you can't do something, but have you ever actually tried? Polish driver Bartek Ostolovsky lost both his arms in a motorcycle accident and thought his career behind the wheel was over until he met someone else with no arms who learned to drive with his feet. That sounds like a pretty difficult skill to master, even for normal driving. But Ostolovsky saw this as his opportunity to get back into professional driving and set out to master this unique skill. But he didn't just settle for being a good driver, he decided to go into drifting. This particularly difficult driving technique is only performed by the very best drivers, and Ostolovsky had enough faith to prove that he deserved to be among them. And he was so right. In his specially modified Nissan Skyline, which allows him to steer with his feet and change gears with his shoulder, he now sits comfortably near the top of the leaderboard at professional drifting competitions. In case you don't know Ken Block, it's safe to introduce him as one of the greatest drivers on earth. He's known for a lot of things, but his Gymkhana series is legendary now, and I'm sure you won't find it difficult to see why. Driving at this speed, while always dangerous, is one thing on a nice, smooth racetrack, but in an industrial landscape like this, filled with obstacles and uneven ground, not to mention how close it is to large bodies of water that he gets unnervingly close to, this is a whole new level of driving. If you look closely, you'll even notice moments where his car is almost literally taking off and flying around the track. And as if the landscape wasn't hard enough to navigate, he makes things even harder for himself by bringing in other huge vehicles to get in his way, like a truck hanging from a helicopter or his near-miss passing in front of a moving train. It's seriously dangerous, but makes for a thrilling watch. There are a lot of good drivers that can do side wheelies. Sure, it's always impressive, but you've seen it before, right? Not like this. This wheelie is an insane stunt performed by Finnish stunt driver Vesa Kivimäki, who broke the Guinness World Record for fastest side wheelie. Yes, you heard right, the fastest ever. I don't know much about this kind of driving, but this seems like a dangerous stunt to perform, even when you're not driving at a breakneck speed. You can actually tell just by looking at the video that he's going incredibly fast, but it's probably still faster than you think. He reached white-knuckle speeds of 115.742 miles per hour on two wheels. This is the kind of stunt that you won't see bettered for many, many years to come. In some countries, 16-year-olds aren't allowed to have a driver's license. That little fact is meant to put into perspective how impressive this stunt is. This is Chloe Chambers, and she's a 16-year-old kart racer. While most people her age have never been near a Porsche, she seems astonishingly calm behind the wheel of this 718 Spider, even while attempting to break the Guinness World Record for the fastest 50-cone slalom in a production vehicle. That's roughly half a mile of expertly swinging a car from left to right. The previous record of 48.114 seconds was matched by Chambers on her second try, which is already something I'm sure most people weren't expecting. So the result of her third try really must have been a shock, but her cool exterior doesn't suggest she ever doubted she could do it. And in the end, she beat the record with a time of 47.45 seconds. Parallel parking is probably the last thing you attempted when you were learning to drive, and there's a good reason for that. It's actually really difficult. So you can be certain that Han Yu's world record will impress anyone who's ever driven a car. He holds the Guinness World Record for the tightest parallel park, and it's even more interesting than you might think. His astounding record is for parallel parking his Mini in a space which was only 3.15 inches bigger than his car. And yes, he did park it between two other cars. But that's impossible, you're probably thinking. For us us regular people, it probably is impossible. But it's not impossible if you can power drift. Han Yu has held this record before, but along came another driver who beat it, and experts said that the record this driver set couldn't be beaten. So if we can learn anything from watching this amazing stunt, it's that nothing's impossible. Some people don't care about what is and isn't possible. They set their mind to something and just do it. That's how you get world records like this one. Well, 2 records actually. Johann Schwartz took his BMW M5 out to attempt the Guinness World Record for longest vehicle drift, and he kept going for 8 hours. The record is frankly staggering, an incredible 232.5-mile drift, but you probably realize that a time like that isn't possible because the car would run out of fuel. That's where the second record comes in. To keep the car going for the longest drift, they use this unique and genius refueling system based on the refueling technology of airplanes that required a second car. It was incredibly risky, of course, with potential explosions and all kinds of other dangers being a worry, but it did mean that they could also break the record for longest twin vehicle drift, as they drifted 49.25 miles next to each other in an hour. Now that's how you break a record in style. There are some things that can only happen in movies, you know, with the help of all those fancy special effects. That was definitely true of this staggering stunt until Jaguar decided to do it anyway. You're about to witness stunt driver Terry Grant set the world record for the largest loop-the-loop in a car with a Jaguar F-Pace. The loop itself is a vertigo-inducing 65-foot high 360-degree circle. This stunt is even more impressive than it seems, and that's really saying a lot. It required special training from Grant so his body could handle the 6.5 Gs it would be subjected to when completing the loop. That's more severe than the force experienced in a space shuttle. I get it. The more you know about it, the more impossible it seems. So hold your breath and just watch. A lot of people aren't great drivers in traffic. Now imagine driving in traffic, but in reverse and at speed. Let's face it, most people won't make it more than a few feet before they bump into something, even if they were going slowly. So watching this man driving all over the traffic-rich streets of India in his Fiat set to reverse is really something that makes most people do a double take. I'd have no problem believing the footage was fake, but surprisingly, it's not. He just likes driving this way, ever since he had car troubles one day and was forced to drive home in reverse. I guess if you discover a hidden talent like reverse driving, there's no reason not to pursue it, although most of us would rightfully be too scared to try. Now he's modified his car to have 4 reverse gears and only 1 forward gear, so he can reach speeds of 80 miles per hour in reverse. Now that's what I call a skill. You can tell this stunt was beyond challenging because it started with a seriously difficult task before it even began. Range Rover wanted to drive its Sport up the famous Heaven's Gate steps in China, but just to get there, they needed to traverse one of the most dangerous and deadly roads on Earth. Once they'd done that, then the challenge started. There aren't many drivers alive who can drive an SUV up steps, never mind the 999 steps Range Rover were attempting to climb. So they got Ho Pin Tung to do it, and they sure chose the right man. Despite being a former Formula E and Formula 1 driver, he later said this stunt was one of the most difficult challenges he'd ever faced. That's not surprising to those of us watching a car climb stairs with a 45-degree incline. It seems impossible to us, but somehow they did it, and we're glad they did because it really is breathtaking.